Welcome, everybody. We've got a Chrono Trigger any percent no LSS race now. Hope everybody's enjoying SNES Super Stars. My name is RLS, and I'll be co-commentating with our very quiet Anatolu. He'll pipe up.
Hey, everybody. Good evening. Excited for a good Chrono Trigger race.
Our racers today are KeetKetchum and 840 Riggs. You'll hear us call them Keet and Riggs. They've been speedrunning this for quite a while, and they both had really good times yesterday. What was it? Yesterday, Keet got his sub.
Yeah, just last night. He's 9th place, I believe, for this category now. It's pretty cool.
Which is absolutely incredible. I believe neither of them have been running this for over a year.
No, I don't think so. I think Riggs started sometime last year and Keet just started this year, so both of them being in top 20, I believe, is really, really impressive.
They've definitely both come a very, very long way, and they've really helped get the weekly races going again for Chrono Trigger, which happen every Sunday for anyone who's interested, usually at about 2 p.m. Eastern.
All right, well, looks like we're getting going here. So, the very beginning, you kind of see both runners adjust their settings. Pretty typical RBG stuff. Try to make the fights box go as quickly as you can, of course. So, hey, Rallis, you run this game, right? I've played this game a lot, but I've mostly just watched these runners play it quite a bit.
I did start running this Chrono Trigger around the same time as Keet, and also run any percent no LSS. Best category, in my opinion, although there have been some crazy new finds in any percent.
Yeah, I love this category. The end boss fight for this category is fantastic.
So we both got a chance to see them try to get Candy Skip. First really fun skip of the game, only saves you about 4 seconds if you get it on the way in, and it allows you to skip this text where you're waiting for Marl to buy some candy.
It's a very difficult skip to get, but it's worth trying.
Definitely appreciate this category because it really shows off a lot of what makes Chrono Trigger what it is, but also has those nice little cuts, especially via fade-outs, which we'll be seeing in the first real dungeon, which is Minoria Cathedral.
Yeah, there's a lot of really neat techniques that we'll be seeing here that are a little bit different from how you would usually play the game casually. So those are going to be fun, and we'll talk through those a little bit as we see them.
A lot of this run, for anyone who doesn't know, is based off of a kind of RNG manipulation. It's not quite RNG, it's more that every fight we'll get into has a set of battle values, and the RNG you're on determines which battle value you'll jump to. So even in the first fight that's coming up after we warp to 600 AD, they have to try and kill all 3 blue imps without getting hit. And that means killing the second imp that would get targeted, then the third, and then the first. And none of them get close enough to touch you.
Right, I believe the RNG advances anytime an action is taken, and so you kind of want to manipulate which actions you allow to happen. That's sort of the way you're trying to control the RNG.
Absolutely. Yeah, regular attacks will advance your RNG a little bit, techs will advance it a little bit more, and then of course enemy attacks or even their idle animations at times can push it forward a little bit. So there are a couple of places, especially in Lavos Shell at the end, where if you go too fast, it's a problem too. Not surprising at all to see our runners only a couple of seconds apart here.
Yeah, and I've seen races in this category that stay extremely close the whole time, and so we'll see how close the runners can skate to each other. Essentially, they're both trying to do the same things throughout. Sometimes things don't always go quite as planned, or the game has other ideas as well.
Perfect blue imps for both runners. That's a good job. Good way to start.
Indeed.
On this next screen, we have what's called bird skip. There's a several pixel window at the end of the bridge where you can go up and skip the fight trigger entirely.
And they both got it. Very nice.
Nice use of pop buffering.
Yeah, it's still a much better idea to be safe to skip the fight than to be daring and accidentally miss it and get in the...
I'm glad both runs are going smoothly. I was kind of hoping maybe we get to see a little bit of backup RNG manip, just to show that it's not quite as unforgiving as some of the RNG heavy games out there. There's, whether you get hit by 1 imp or 2 imps or miss the bird skip, there are ways you can make that up when you're coming back through the forest to get right back on track, so you don't lose too much time. And that happens at a lot of the places. We've got backup reloads we can do. That's a fun little thing. So we were talking about RNG, and the reason why both of our runners started with no save file is because it starts with the same seed every time, and it just happens to be the one that we want. But when you're reloading your game from a save, RNG progresses after you hit A on the pendulum swing. So while it's loading up your screen to pick from a save, RNG is advancing for every fraction of a second that you're there. And these runners have practiced the game so much, they know exactly how long they have to have that screen open before selecting their save to get back to where they need to be.
And we'll see that coming up here pretty soon. When we're doing some of the skips, and we go back to that intro screen, they're very precise in timing. Hit A to close out the...
It's almost imperceptible, but the first time we'll see that will come shortly after they're finished with the cathedral, which will take about 8 minutes from now that we're done the cathedral. So shortly after that, you'll see it come. First, we get to see fade outs. These are really fun. So when you try to exit a screen, there's actually several frames in which the screen is fading out, and in that time you can open your menu. After closing your menu, your screen starts at full brightness, and it has to restart fading out again. That's why we call them fade outs. So you can continue to menu in and out and go somewhere else on the screen. And where we usually want to go is to a save point. The game only tracks where you're ending to see where you're on that save point. So that's not a very good way of explaining it.
It's almost easier to watch it.
Yeah. The point being that if they're standing on a save point when they transition, the game thinks they never left that save point. So
Exactly.
Until we enter another screen where you can save, they can save or use shelters wherever they want.
And by being able to save in places that aren't necessarily right on the save point, we're able to do some very interesting things, especially around boss fights and boss triggers.
Couple of fights here in the forest. We use them to get RNG where we want them to make things as quick as possible, of course, but it's really just to learn a couple of techs here. We want Chrono to learn Cyclone in this fight, and Luca's going to learn Flame Toss in the next.
We also come down here to pick up a power tab. Tabs are fairly important to keep our stats on pace.
The movement we're seeing here is just excellent.
Yeah, movement is something you kind of have to watch for it to appreciate. But every time you can slide along a surface or cut through something or miss an encounter by a pixel or two, these are all the optimizations that make a huge difference over a 3-hour run.
So here enters our next party member, Frog. He could rival Cloud for RPG's biggest sword. At first we're a little hesitant to let him join us, but he seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, I think in the end, Frog does okay for us.
So what do we think? Are both runners going to get a 2 fade on this power tab?
We'll find out. Keet has been pretty safe with his fades lately, but I know he's been practicing as well. Riggs is usually very solid with the quick fades. And that looks
Riggs
good.
gets it. Oh, I saw Keet clip the entrance heading back for the power tab. It's going to cost a couple of seconds, but it's not too bad. So that's the first use of the fade-outs that we were talking about. Because they open and close their menu, it allows them to get a little bit further on the screen, and they can start the animation for picking up the power tab, but there's a little jingle that plays. But instead, it just takes them out of the screen like it was originally trying to do.
Yeah, you're essentially delaying some of the automatic action that the game would like to do, but can't do it if you're prioritizing a menu. There's a flag trick right here where we try to play the organ with just Chrono's right hand. We don't always get it though.
We unfortunately saw Keet lose RNG there, attacking with Luca instead of the fire whirl. Thankfully, in this particular case, it's the last fight we wanted to hold RNG for anyways, as we'll be doing a reset soon. So it costs a couple of seconds on the fight, and we'll see if he can make it up. But
Yeah.
with Riggs, we have an opportunity to see our first boss fight coming up.
Yeah, so on Rig's screen right now, it's very interesting, because usually we would be entering into a boss fight with Yakra. But we're going to see if we can make this go by just a little bit faster.
Oh, here's a good one. What you see Riggs doing here is switching back and forth between his character's equipment. We're using something called the Unequip glitch. There's only a few differences between the American and Japanese versions of Chrono Trigger, and one of them is exactly what the Unequip glitch does for you. What we're looking for is it boosts your elemental resistance to water, shadow, and lightning by an absolutely ridiculous amount, and also boosts your magic attack. In the Japanese version, it also gives you the fire resistance, but doesn't give you the magic attack boost.
Yeah, the unequip glitch is massive for survivability at these low levels that we'll be running this game at. And then
So that was Yakra.
Yep, that's Yakra. When you see Keet and Riggs running up and down here, this is actually for a purpose. This is text canceling, where if you run the talking NPC out of the screen, right as they begin to talk, you actually cancel the text box faster than if you were to wait and try to mash through it.
And you'll see them doing that in a lot of places, of course. It saves way more time than you would initially think, but it actually takes quite a bit of time for the game to process all the text. That's one of the reasons why all of our character names are so short, is because it's a frame for every character that's produced. Added up all together over the run, it saves, I think it was about 40 seconds. The reason why we didn't fight Yakra was, again, using fade-outs. You saw them stop on the save point in the previous screen, and this allowed them to save right on top of where the fight would trigger, and then they were able to reload their game and skip the trigger entirely.
This is an important skip right here that Riggs just successfully did, and Keet will do in a minute, which is you avoid getting too close to Frog on the stairs there, and you skip an entire scene, or at least a little bit of dialogue right there talking.
It is definitely happily referred to as the hardest skip in the game, and every runner can tell you that they've failed it at least once. You get a lot of this movement just on autopilot, and that one time you're going to forget that Frog is there. You run right into him, and you have to sit through a fairly long farewell. So this reload that both the runners have done now is the first one I was suggesting where they're actually setting RNG again. And in this case, they're doing what we call a double bright, which is twice the amount of time that it would take for the screen to go from black to fully loaded to select your save. It's 0.4 to 0.8 seconds. They're going to carry this RNG right up until our next boss. Don't worry, we're actually going to fight this one.
And it's not an easy one. It's definitely one that can really throw your game off. But first we have to get in trouble with the chance and get chased into the...
So we went all the way back into the past to save a girl and her ancestors, bring her home, and get put on trial? That seems weird. But we're guilty, right. I think. I think Riggs is guilty.
I think Riggs is guilty as well, and I think we always hope that he will be.
Yeah, let's hope they're both guilty. I think they should go to prison. We're hoping for 2 guilty verdicts here.
Remind me how much of a time save a guilty is versus a non-guilty?
A whopping 4 seconds.
It's
Which
huge.
is going to make a difference today. If Keet can get the guilty and Riggs doesn't, this could help close a bit of that gap that we lost in Cathedral.
That's right. And it's completely random. You can do as much as you can for the speed run here. But essentially, I think it's about 50-50.
It is 50-50. Just the second juror that we have to watch out for, he's going to be the one that actually decides our fate. Everybody else seems to be pretty split about it. When we start off the game and go to the fair, there's a lot of activities that you can do, including eating an old man's lunch, returning a little girl's cat, and how you interact with these people determine exactly what kind of a character Chrono has. And that's what they're arguing about right now, whether or not he's deviant. Throughout this trial, to save that 4 seconds, we do as much as we can to assure them that we were absolutely guilty. You know what? We knew she was a princess, we knew that she's rich, and we wanted to abduct her. Unfortunately, as we can see for Riggs' side there, we are getting a not guilty verdict.
Sometimes you act as guilty as you possibly can, but still don't want to throw you in prison.
Maybe it's the honesty. That's probably it. They just know that Chrono's an honest person. And another not guilty. Okay. They're good guys. So we save a princess's life, and even though we're not guilty, we get 3 days in prison. Can't be that bad, right? 3 hots and a cot.
And if you choose to wait in your prison cell for 3 days, Luca will actually come to save you.
What do you think they serve in Guardia Prison?
I don't know, all those demon knight fellows. Yeah, maybe they bring beef jerky up from the kitchen. That's a good guess.
Well, I hope so. I'd pocket that. That's 9,900 gil apiece.
Yeah, it's expensive jerky.
So we got a nice care package on our bed and some water in the corner and a save point, except we don't care much for the care package.
Nope. And Chrono's a troublemaker, so he's just gonna try to start a fight as soon as he can here.
Well, he's got places to be. His mom's gonna worry if he doesn't come home tonight.
Yeah, and he needs to feed his cat.
You know, I've played Chrono Trigger over and over and over again for most of my life, and I can honestly say I think the one thing I haven't done is ever feed Chrono's cat. Not sure what happened with Riggs there. Either we missed power tab usage or we missed the RNG back when we did reverse bird skip. That's going to shift our lead a little.
Yeah, not too bad a place to get off. It's only about 20 seconds there, since he just barely saved in the jail cell.
Resetting for new RNG is definitely quicker this early than going through our next boss, Dragon Tank, with backup strength. So those guards weren't doing much. You can walk right by them, as long as you don't touch either of them. And they don't seem to mind. They're just like, oh, well, you know, he's not in a cell, so he must be able to go where he wants. Here we've got one of the longer fade outs. There's a battle trigger on the middle of the bridge that if we try to leave, use our menus in and out to get to where the battle would trigger, instead of triggering the battle, it just makes it vanish.
Definitely a long fade to get through, and not the easiest one to keep track of exactly where you are either.
Alright, no tricky guards today. That second one, he just likes to look at you for no reason.
Yeah, sometimes he takes a real long time to turn away. And you're just stuck waiting.
So Luca, the wonderful friend that she is, has come to rescue us. We didn't really need it, but everything's more fun with friends.
Yeah, we'll take it though. Luca's pretty good help in a pinch. And now here's a boss fight we do have to fight. Dragon Tank coming up. So this is quite an important fight to be on the RNG for, because the strategy, it goes quite a bit more smoothly if you can count on knowing exactly where you are, and we'll see that as the fight goes on. It looks a little bit risky, but actually it's completely under control.
You're definitely right. The time save is fairly significant. The biggest difference between the strategy they're using right now versus a backup strategy is that this one takes out the head first, and as you can see, it's healing all the body parts. Leaving it for last just means you're trying to do more damage than it's healing for, and it's a bit of a slog.
And then Chrono just does this to look cool. Jump on top of the Dragon Tank, stick your sword in.
Probably the best animation we see in the speedrun, I think.
Definitely one of my favorites. Along with the Chancellor's face of disbelief.
He'll make that a couple of times.
Yeah, so as you can see, 29 minutes in and still a very close race, so this is fantastic. So here we are, about to haphazardly jump into another time portal. Not sure where it goes, but I'm sure it'll be somewhere lovely.
There's nowhere to run, they said, but they didn't say anything about when.
You can always run to the future if you have a gate key and a gate.
All of a sudden, I'm really disappointed we never run back to the future.
Okay, so here we are in a bleak and distant future with rats who will take your items. And we kind of want them to, at least sometimes.
Yeah, as long as these text boxes are up, you'll see that they're able to run right through some of the fight triggers, and the game doesn't.
Lose some tonics and a little bit of gold to be able to skip some encounters. It's a pretty good trade-off for us here. Okay, so here we have another skip. This is to skip the Guardian boss. Here we're not using a save point exactly, we're just getting past the triggers we come through.
One of the fun things about skipping Guardian is it actually ties back into the settings that we changed right at the beginning. That room has a pretty strange script where if you press the X button, specifically the X button on your controller, not whatever was originally mapped to X, but if you push the X button, it starts a battle. So one of the things our runners did was change their menu button from the default X to Y, just to get around that, and they've been using that ever since. So if you played Chrono Trigger as a kid, it can be a little tough to get used to. This is the bug room. It is infamous for teaching you good movement. It's really difficult to get these early cycles.
Very nice that both runners got through that without hitting an encounter. There is a way to do it very quickly, but it is not easy and generally takes a little bit of luck. And here we're skipping the big Lavos cutscene, where everyone finds out about why the world turned out the way it did. right, both runners safely out. Very difficult encounter dodges throughout that entire dungeon, so extremely impressive movement.
And definitely nice to see no encounters. That's the real time save. So here we're going to get a bike key, and we're going to drive a nice big swag car across a long empty part of the ruins, and we're going to race Johnny.
Definitely one of my favorite parts of the run here. Johnny being one of the two best characters in this game, along with Dalton, of course.
Oh, don't forget Flea.
Hey, it's the man.
Racing Johnny might seem kind of trivial, but losing this race can cost you usually anywhere between 1.5 to 2 minutes, which obviously to speedrunners is huge.
And losing this race is deceptively easy to do because you can do everything right until the very last 2 seconds of the race and then accidentally lose quite easily.
So I heard you like races. So we put a race in your race so you can race while you race.
Meta race. Alright, what's our WP? Keet got 1142. Riggs got 1005.
Over 1,000 for both. That's still really nice. I was actually a little scared for Keet. Came
He was
really close at the end.
Keet lives on the edge. And here we meet Robo. Definitely one of our favorite characters. Just need to get him fixed up a little bit real quick.
You know, this music seems kind of familiar. You know, not Chrono Trigger music, but maybe something else.
I think you've just heard it too many times. It's definitely Chrono Trigger.
You have to be right. It's gotta be Chrono Trigger.
Riggs has named Robo Comma. I like that. So there's a fight coming up here in the factory, which is a little bit of RNG, but it can make a time difference in the run. It's the acid alkaline fight, and depending on how many you get of each in just a moment, the fight can go pretty quickly, or it can kind of troll you and take quite a bit of time.
We've got a pretty good idea for how to get the best setup. What we call it 5 greens. Unfortunately, it's tied off of the game's in-game timer on the frame that you enter the room. And even though they're on such good pace, it would take longer in a lot of cases to wait, because they have to wait for the full the game's next full minute to enter the room, and we don't like waiting. We're speedrun. I'm feeling 2 greens.
I'm going to be optimistic and say 4 greens. Oh, split the difference.
We have to be a little careful here, and the reason why we want more greens is not only do they take more damage, but if there are a green and a red close together, and you hit a green, it'll cause a counterattack, and that eats up a lot of time, as you can see.
That's what just happened to Keet over on the left side. But both runners getting about equal luck here. But as you can see, physical attacks just taking quite a bit more damage off the green.
Oh no.
Ooh, that's not good.
Oh, we got the backup revive. You know, I didn't even notice that. That is excellent.
Marathon safety. That's good. Riggs will come out of this okay.
Chrono levels up during this fight, and our next fight just happens to be a very tight boss fight. We really can't afford to not have that experience. So these are the R series, and they think that because our friend Robo is helping us, that he absolutely has to be broke.
That's always a difficult scene to watch. But we will get our revenge.
Inputs are spot on for Keet. That is great. It's actually very hard to kill those back three before they get another round of attacks.
Yeah, and I believe he started with pretty bad ATB as well. And so fight was made that much more difficult for him to get it exactly right. Very nice.
And rigs too, excellent. So I know Luca only fixed Robo up about 5 minutes ago, but we're gonna have to do it again.
This is definitely the last time Luca will have to fix Robo up in this run.
Well, yeah, I'm sure she's making improvements as she goes. Luca is actually so sure of her fixes here, where she'll comment that she hopes she never has to do it again. That's just good storytelling.
Alright, let's take all four of us back in time. What could happen?
Well, that looked a little weird.
So that little circle you saw Keet do there was to try to gather the party members together so that their animations as they cluster into the formation where they do this conversation can just go a little bit more quickly, and it's another one of those small optimizations that really add up over the course of the run. Particularly difficult to do with 4 party members. And here we have Frog Specchio, something I know I never saw when I was running this game, playing this game casually. Specchio's form is dependent on your level, so when you're at these really low levels that we're at here, he's in his weakest frog.
Well, if he's in his weakest form, that means we should fight him, right?
Oh, I think we should definitely fight him. What do we have to lose?
Alright, everybody think magic. Okay, so Keet doesn't want to try out his magic. That's okay. It's a little less fun for us, but it's definitely better for our run. The Unequip glitch we started earlier actually makes it very difficult for Specchio to kill you. Otherwise, it could be a fairly short fight, but with those changes, it can take a while.
So here now on Keet's screen, we'll see the lunch skip. So this guy wants to have a conversation with you. First, we grab some cake and slide our way out the door before he can actually talk to us.
Two successful cake and dash. Just a few fights we're gonna run from here. And it's going to take us up to our next boss, and we're not going to fight him either.
Yep, so we have Hecarim coming up here, and rather than fight him, we're just going to see if we can get him to self-destruct.
First try for Keet, that is excellent. This is
Okay.
one of the more difficult skips to do on a first attempt. We can actually get through this screen without going through Hecarim's text, but unfortunately it has a story trigger that we need to hit. And a first try for Riggs too. That is an excellent job.
Very nice. Those were both textbook. Very nicely done.
Coming up now, we've got what's called the End of Time Save Anywhere. So it's the same fade out we're doing onto save points at a lot of different locations, except this time we're going to do it while we're being zipped off of the screen. This is complicated for a couple of reasons. You have to have Robo in a good spot in your party, you have to have him in a good spot on your screen, we have to delay text boxes by not closing them and activating that portal that we saw on the top. And now we have to heal and progress text at the same time. And we have to activate the teleport on a series of specific frames. Just one, and there's lots of options. But if you
Like
don't get
keypad.
it, you're looking at another about 40 seconds to set up your next save anywhere.
Yeah, you have to make a 40-second detour over to the cathedral.
So we saw Keet get it here. Unfortunately, Riggs didn't have quite the same luck, so we'll be seeing his detour into the cathedral just to pick up the backup strat. We're going to use that to skip our next boss.
Yeah, again, it is a very difficult one to pull off. And not too big a deal. Getting across the bridge, even with having that, can still also be pretty trolly.
Now, there's been a lot of discussion as to which is more difficult, either skipping Hekran or getting the 2 skips on Zombor. I think generally Hekran is the one that people have more difficulty with. And we'll see if these guys can pull off the same thing with Zombor as they did with Hekran. Oh, perfect. Key got step 1. And step 2. Excellent, another first try.
That's great. I've seen Keet practice that one quite a bit too, so I'm sure he's feeling good.
So here on Denadoro Mountains, we don't have to fight this fight, but we're going to use it to set up RNG for the next boss. And again, this one we are finally going to fight, and it is even more difficult than the last 2 that we did. Riggs unfortunately struggling a little starting off with Zombor skip. I have definitely been there frequently as of...
Yeah, again, definitely not an easy skip to pull off by any means. We'll see if Keet talks to the mountains are nice Killwalla. I hope he does.
Mountains are nice. So coming up is Masa and Mune, and they're going to start off as 2 separate enemies. And the right side has a really nasty tendency to counterattack every time you...
What's nice about the first phase of this fight is you only need to beat one of them, so you can focus and get through it pretty quickly. second phase of the fight can go wrong pretty quickly, and if it gets out of control, it can be quite difficult.
So we can see Keet going with a slightly safer, albeit just a little bit slower strat using the fire punches.
I believe the other strat only saves you about 5 seconds and provides a little bit more opportunity for RNG to disrupt your plans here in this fight.
The infamous Masa troll. Sometimes he just decides that you lose. I find it most impressive is that these runners just spend so much time that they can actually learn the different strats that they need instead of just, with a lot of games, you learn the route and that's it. The route doesn't deviate much, but they have the options to just take it a little slow and play it to how they're feeling the run's going.
And Riggs took a quick reset.
Having to rescale all the way up to Denadoro Peak is unfortunately going to cost Riggs about 2.5 minutes.
Unfortunately, the Masa fight, a very common place to have to do a reset, but it's not an easy climb, unfortunately. We see Keet get through it, and he will get his broken sword.
That doesn't sound like much of a reward, does it?
No, it doesn't. I think we'll have to go convince an old man to ramble to himself for a little while he fixes our sword for us.
Thankfully, Riggs still has lots of opportunities left in this run to catch back up.
Oh, for sure. We still have a lot of run to go, and plenty of things can still happen to and for both of these runners.
We're going to sell off some of our extra equipment here so we can unequip a few more things and a couple more characters, set us up for the next, oh geez, about an hour of the run after that.
Yeah, I believe this is one of the biggest menus in the whole run right here.
Or how do you think our new tally is going to look today?
I hope for at least 4 between the two runs. We'll see what we get. Not one yet on Keet's side. I'm sure we'll see one.
We make 2 trips to Frog's Burrow in the run. One now and one after we finish putting together the sword. And each time we have a fairly small chance, in most cases about 12.5%, to run into a new, and we consider it a good luck charm. Keet is one of the only people, I believe, to actually have had a 4 new run on the leaderboard.
Yeah, Keet had a PB a couple months ago. That was a 4 new run, and it was very exciting for everybody when a 4 new run actually turns into a PB as well. But very rare to even have 4 news in a single playthrough.
I think the chances of that happening are only a 2 point something percent.
So here we can see we're not avoiding an encounter, but we are trying to do some kind of skip with Melquar. And this is really just to make this scene go by a little bit faster.
We already know what we need to fix the sword. We really don't need him to tell us. Good Masa and Mune fight for Riggs.
Yeah, still a very nice time getting through one of the first major roadblocks here in the game.
Here we meet our next new party member, Ayla, or as we like to call her, Blank. She is the warrior chieftain of the tribe, and what we're about to learn is 65 million BC. She also really likes to drink soup.
Yeah, she's really good at drinking, yeah, let's call it soup.
Just a quick opportunity to take Marl out of our party, because she's a real party girl and we want to keep it tame when we go to drink soup.
Keet got the Killwalla high five there at the bottom. One of my favorite recent discoveries there. close you can get to them.
I think Riggs is having a little bit of trouble with his Unequip. I didn't see what happened there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I believe so. I think he's going to need to find a weapon in one of these shops. Here we found a gun in order to be able to pull it off. Whew. Everything's fine. Very nice recovery.
And again, this really just goes to show how much our runners have learned about the game to be able to go and find what they needed to fix the situation. It really wasn't as simple as knowing what needed to be done, but what they could do to fix anything if the situation arose. We're not a big fan of Kino here on Keat's screen, so we're just not going to talk to him.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say this entire section goes by quite a bit more quickly if you don't include Kino in it.
New!
Very nice new on Rig's screen. The run has been blessed. Oh, double new.
That is incredible. We do not see that often enough. We could have another 4 new run.
We're halfway there. Over on Keat's side, fighting these Megasaurs, which you have to hit with lightning for them to be open to damage from the rest of your characters. Not much you can do to get around it.
And did you see his input on that first lightning? It was flawless. Alright. And it's not as terrifying in this case, but it's nice to see that Keat is on RNG for our next boss fight, Nisbel. Thankfully, because of our really high lightning resistance, Nisbil can't do too much damage as long as we keep him shocked. It'd be really nice to see if Keet can keep this RNG straight through Magus Castle.
Yeah, he's on a really fantastic pace so far. Here we have Ayla with the Berserker doing some good work.
An excellent Nisbel fight for Keet. So we have our Dreamstone, and we have our Gate Key back, and now we're gonna go get our broken sword fixed.
Time for us to pop out of that cupboard at least one more time here.
I'd be pretty alarmed if somebody just hopped out of my cupboard.
You know, after a while, they really seem to take it in stride.
Which do you think was more alarming? Strangers coming out of the cupboard or strangers eating their cake?
Well, personally, I know I would be much more alarmed. Cake suddenly disappeared, especially my health regaining cake. Pretty fancy.
Now, I guess it's not every day you come across ambrosia.
So the scene on Keith's screen may look a little funny because we seem to be missing a little bit of the dialogue.
Not only that, but we could also see Keet bumping up against Melchior as he was prepping things to fix the sword, and it actually advances their animations a bit to be bumping into them while he's standing still. It's kind of a weird little perk, but it saves time.
Now we bring Keet back to see if he can find some news. Very nice bird skip there for Keet. Hey, there's a new top at you, dog.
That's 3 out of 8 news so far.
We're having excellent new luck.
So here we get a little bit of Frog's origin story and how he became a frog in the first place. And while Keet continues to mash through these cutscenes, we get another chance to see Nisbel. Looks like Riggs is on the correct RNG.
Never get tired of watching Nisbel flex. So now we have Frog reunited with the Hero Medal and Masa and Mune, and so he gets to do some pretty cool stuff in one of the greatest cutscenes, at least all of Super Nintendo.
Also one of the greatest unsolved mysteries on the Super Nintendo. Local Frogman has ability to obliterate an entire mountain, and we only ever seen it used once.
Frog's not a show-off like Chrono is. And we've got Riggs finishing his Nisbel fight. Very nice.
Unfortunate extra fight for Riggs. So this screen in the Magic Cave is a really interesting one as far as enemy movements are concerned. As soon as he's done with this first battle, every other enemy in the area is going to continue moving even while text is open. And we need to be really fast about closing the text boxes to make sure we get the first cycle. Which he does.
And here we go into Magus' castle, where Ozzy threatens us with having to fight all 100 of his monsters. We probably won't be.
Trying to do a little bit of Italian. I think we're going to defeat 23? This fight provides us with a really convenient opportunity to just check and see if we're on the correct RNG. Frog's going to get hit for either 45 or 46, and either of those numbers is good. That's
We've got the
another
third
new.
Very nice, Riggs. 3 news.
The dream is alive. So, coming up very shortly is probably the single best fight in this entire. Flea is an absolute nightmare casually. He or she, both. Power is beauty. Flea has all the power. Flea has an uncanny tendency of afflicting status elements, whether it's blindness, poison, or just making Chrono murder the party. And we found a way around that, and that's just to not let Flea do anything. And what makes this so fun is that Flea and Frog have the same speed value. So if we enter the fight on the correct RNG, they'll try to take their turns at the same time. So instead, Frog will hit Flea, and Flea will stand there and do nothing. So we're just going to let Frog take care of this fight.
Also providing our runners one of the only real break opportunities. Go grab a drink. Thanks, Frog. There we go. Much easier when you don't have to worry about getting charmed.
Definitely a big shout out to Frog for carrying the party. Slash, on the other hand, coming up is one of the more intensive RNG manipulation fights in the run.
Yes, Slash is a real battle. Sort of the opposite of Flea in that it takes quite a bit of focus and you really need to pay attention. Riggs not getting that 4th new, but a 3 new run is still a very, very blessed run.
And what's even more impressive is you called it. We got 4 out of 8 news.
Hey! Commentator's blessing, that's what they call that.
Excellent first phase slash for Keith.
Yes, indeed.
I see what you did there.
Slash is another one of those fights where the HP gets a little low for my comfort, but I know it's all planned.
Well, it's really easy for things to go wrong in Slash. Especially given a lot of the selections you're making are the same every round, and a lot of them are just waiting for frog, where if you're not paying really close attention, you can go too early or too late, and you won't even know until it's over.
Had a nice high five between the runners there. Oh, and we got Sick Ozzy. Very nice.
I think Keith's been playing around with that a lot lately, where depending on your horizontal position on the screen when Ozzy is spawned, you can get some different shade.
He's in a pickle.
I'm fairly certain Keith plans to go for the rolly skip on this next staircase. It's a really tight trick to be able to do.
No, he
Okay,
waited.
he waits it out. Definitely the safe choice. there's a rather slim window where you can just squeeze by on the stairs without triggering the encounter, and running into the fight not only takes a bit of time, but you'll have to reset RNG before Magus, and it just adds up.
It does. With those rollies, it's strange to watch it if you don't know how it works. Basically, if you're moving when they hit you, it'll trigger, but if you're standing still, then they'll just roll right on past you.
Riggs enjoying his little flea break here. Got Keet coming up to the Aussie battle here. Not really too much of a battle, but a very good indicator of whether you're on a good RNG for the Magus fight. And I'm fairly certain he is. We'll be seeing the 4th hit for 119. And it's just really impressive the way that he's been able to keep RNG all the way from Masa and Mune through Nizbel, climbing up the castle, and then eventually going to be doing Magus here shortly. And doing all of that without losing RNG is incredible.
It really is. Keet has been having a very smooth run.
So, the Magus fight is an incredibly fun one, both casually speaking and in the speedrun. He's got a very unique mechanic in that, well, I guess we've seen it in some other RPGs, but he'll use an element, and you have to hit him with that element in order to damage him and progress. And eventually he'll have a second phase. But thanks to the RNG manipulation, we already know exactly what elements we're going to get, so we picked the ones we could do the most damage.
Yeah, it's fortunate too, because our element availability with this party right now is quite limited.
Well, we've got 3 bases covered. Lightning, Shadow... Well, I guess no, we never took Frog back to learn Water. That's true.
Indeed. No time for that. Can also take a moment to admire the evil-looking statues in Magus' castle. And of course, the Magus theme here, with fantastic.
Easily one of the best songs in the game. I'm not sure what happened there, but Keet fell off of RNG.
He did.
Looks like he's gonna try and push through. As long as you can reach the second phase, the rest of the fight's pretty safe. Shadow being a very lucky element to come up.
Yep. Now we'll see what Magus decides to do.
Rig's done now with both Flea and Slash. Both were very nicely done.
We get a Shadow again. So we're looking for Shadow and Lightning, because those are the elements available to Chrono and to Robo, where we can cause damage to Magus. If we get a Water or a Fire, then essentially that's a cycle where we can't do much to him.
Yeah, we really don't want to see a second fire. I don't think we can handle that.
And yeah, it's a good point with the Unequip glitch. We are also more vulnerable to fire than we are to water.
And another Shadow. This is lining up quite nicely.
Keet may be able to get... We shall see, though. Magus has quite a bit of HP. I believe he has 6,666, and you have to get through half of that to get to Phase 2.
I feel like this should do it. Come on, Magus, cast a spell.
Magus risks casting a spell. Very nice. Keet has gotten through to Phase 2. Battle is quite a bit safer from here.
We get a chance to see if Riggs is going to go for a rolly skip.
No,
Not
took the smart
quite.
move.
It's actually quite difficult to climb up the stairs in such a fashion to reach it in time. It's a very, very tight window.
That was a very good climb on Rig's side.
There we go, Magus is down.
A very nice battle there for Keet. Getting thrown off RNG, but still being able to power through that. I think that on Rig's side, he's off RNG with this battle. Not too sure what happened.
Well, we know that Ozzy's pretty generous with his battle values. We'll see what happens in a second. Thankfully, every lever you hit snaps your RNG to a new value. And there's a really good chance it'll put us right where we need it to be. Didn't actually get a chance to comment the last room where we're running back and forth between the statues. When you're climbing up the stairs at the very end of the room, if you're facing up or down, there is an encounter there that you'll run into, and that's because your hitbox actually extends out a full tile in the direction that you're facing. It's kind of a weird little mechanic, but changes so much when you know what to expect. Rig's unfortunately getting a little taste of Ozzy's counterattack.
The Aussie fight here is also nice because it can tell you where you are in the RNG cycle. There are some backup strategies available for the Magus fight. Exactly where you find yourself. But I think that was a 119.
It was a 119, even with the extra attack from Frog, which is incredible. So we just need to shelter up, make sure our HPMP is full, and we're good to go. Rig's thankfully remembering the shelter. That is actually really important.
So Rig's in good shape now.
Really quite nice that neither of our runners had to reload before Magus, because you lose a few seconds if you need to go back and reset it, and that's just resetting from the save point. Not to mention getting down to Magus, getting through the start of the cutscene, waiting to find out the barrier he casts is not the one that you want. It's a massive time sink if you're not on the correct RNG. There's a couple of really cool skips coming up on Keith's side here on Dactyl Nest. There's two pixel perfect skips coming up on a couple of the following screens. Not on both the X and Y axis, but just the X. But it's really nice to see that if you're in that one specific spot, you can just squeak by the enemies. And every encounter that we're able to skip saves us approximately 15 seconds. That's just the time it takes to get the battle started, to run away, and then for it to end. Perfect skips on both.
It's a nice Dactyl nest there, and you see some conversation in chat about running away from battles. The true speedrun technique that casual players don't know. At least I never did until I watched speedruns and realized that you can run away.
It's looking like Riggs is getting a good Magus here. Still on RNG, and only a couple attacks away from starting the second phase.
And in the second phase, so on Rig's side, really, really nice Magus fight so far.
That was an amazing menu by Keet. And Magus is down for Riggs. That was an excellent fight.
Yeah, 201 Magus time is still a really, really good time finishing off Magus, so both our runners still on a really, really fantastic pace.
The gap is considerably smaller now than it was 15 minutes ago. This is pretty much how it's going to be going for the rest of the run as well. Each of the boss fights that we're going to be getting into is very precise, and where things can go wrong, they will.
Yeah, I believe we only have one more boss skip, which is coming up here for Keet. Nizbel. But we already fought Nizbel once, so don't need to do it again.
It's really just more of the same anyways. Ooh, an extra fight for Keet, which is going to lead into a second extra fight as well. Oh, he got around it. Very nice.
The best thing here is we see one more opportunity to see Nisbel flex.
A quick reload to get ourselves back on RNG. One of the more convenient reloads to be able to do is it's just a bright load.
And the save point is very conveniently located.
This volcano fight too really puts into perspective just how much effort has been put into discovering the best possible route that we can have, learning spin cut, and as a result, ice sword right before the fight that we need it. This far into the game is beyond my wildest imagination.
Yeah, I believe in older routes there was actually quite a bit of grinding right on that fight as well. But the route has been optimized since then.
It's probably a good opportunity to throw a big shout out to Red Slash, Adriana, El Gran Jerry, and a lot of the other members of the Chrono Trigger community who have been working on this game for an incredibly long time.
Yeah, this run is on the shoulders of giants. Definite shout out to Red Slash, who's in chat. We've got Exala down, so onto just the black Tyranno here. So yeah, this is definitely like all of the boss fights coming up, it takes quite a bit of precise inputs to get through it. The game is expecting you to be at a very different place when you're having these fights.
At the very least, Black Tyranno does us a bit of a favor in regards to not doing anything for about 5 rounds. Doesn't really know what to do now that Azala's gone, so its intention is just set the world on fire until things stop moving.
I always wonder how Black Tyranno got up there.
You know, that's a really good point I hadn't considered, but now that you mention it, given the timeline, how do they have a structure strong enough for a dinosaur of that size to be out on a bridge and not breaking things?
We know it wasn't magic, because magic wasn't around yet.
I think we need answers. A little bit more Nisbel flexing there. Everything looking really good for Keet so far. We're going to find out very shortly.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we've got Riggs just about to get into this fight, so you can see that gap is considerably reduced from where it was prior to Magus.
This race could very much go either way. It's probably going to come down to whoever has the better Lavos Shell. I know both runners have been practicing very hard for this.
Yeah, this category is really fun because the real test of execution is right at the end in the Lavos Shell battle, which is grueling, but really, really incredible to watch.
Zala down for rigs as well. Everything's looking good as Keat's going to head into the Dark Ages.
We'll get a little bit of that Corridors of Time music, which is definitely a favorite for a lot of people. Very important to tell the Zealand to secretly plant.
A lot of runs have died right there from not closing all of those text boxes.
Seems like a small thing, but it enables us to get one of the items we need to actually beat this run the way that we intend to.
As far as the main story is concerned, we've pretty much finished all that we'll be seeing. So we went through discovering that Magus was the big bad of 600 AD, and he was trying to summon Lavos, who ruins the world in the year 1999. Defeating Magus, we get sent back into prehistory, and we actually witness the moment that Lavos falls to the earth and buries himself underground. And we follow him here to pick up the trail. Except we leave here. We charge up our magic pendant, which is what started all of this time travel in the first place. And then we're just going to do one little side quest and go right to the end of the game.
Yeah, by here we've seen enough. I think we know who the real villain is.
It's Magus, right? Look, there he is now.
Yeah, so I believe there are 12 different endings, something like that, depending on when you fight and defeat Lavos. And so we'll be seeing one because obviously we'll be beating Lavos a little bit earlier in the story than where most of us did when we played through this casually. So we'll be seeing an ending that most people are not really very familiar with, which is pretty fun, actually.
Do you have a favorite ending?
Oh, I always like the ending where everyone is happy and they still have the epic. But I also love the developer's room.
The Dream Team, yeah.
Getting a little bit of insight into what everyone was thinking as they made this game. I love the developer who comments about how difficult Final Fantasy IV is.
My personal favorite is the one where Chrono talks.
Yeah, that one is strange.
Yeah, Luca and Marl just spend the entire credits talking about a lot of the different NPCs in the game. And then Chrono has just about enough. It was a nice, another little high five.
Yeah, so from this point on, Keet is kind of turning his back on the rest of the story, and we're just going to go see if we can get ourselves a really nice weapon and do a quick side quest, and then maybe we'll be ready to fight Lavos. My favorite use of the skip here to get past the barrier.
I've always found that fade out to be a little off-putting, but not the worst fade out by any means. I think it's just having to weave around the trees instead of the straight fade outs you get in either Laruba Ruins or in the prison. So we have our weapon. We're on our way to the one side quest, which is a really good example of cause and effect in terms of time travel. 12,600 years ago, we told a lady to plant a tree. And not only did that tree start by causing a massive sinkhole in the middle of the continent, but it will further result in the growth of an entire forest.
So the lesson is plant a tree, or at least tell someone else to.
I like that lesson.
this side quest also offers us opportunity to get a little bit of experience, get our levels up just a little bit. It is important for getting the Lavos Shell.
It's really quite nice. We're getting close to done, and both runners are still on a really nice pace. So we figured since you didn't get to see Zombor earlier, you'd probably like to see a different palette Zombor now.
Ret Knight, a boss where he's not vulnerable to attacks until you harden the sand with a water or ice attack.
Also a real race against the clock as well, as you'll see both the head and the legs are absorbing energy from the core at intervals, and once the core dies, they start using some very deadly attacks. We definitely don't want to see that happen, so we're going to make sure to take out both before the head goes, or before the core goes.
Briggs getting his swallow.
And we've got Riggs heading in for the quest just as Keet manages to finish up. Only thing left to do is pick up a couple of elixirs, finish this side quest, and head on to Lavos.
Really nice Ret Knight fight there from Keet. This whole section is quite difficult, so it's nice when it goes well.
A lot of the run is fairly gentle, but I can also kind of appreciate the gradual scaling difficulty for the rest of the run. Just from Magus heading to Black Tyranno, coming in to do Ret Knight, and then of course Lavos Shell.
Yeah, early in the run, the Masa and Mune fight always feels pretty high pressure and intense. And then when you're in these fights, you look back at that pretty fondly.
Yeah, if we could trade out Lavos Shell for another Masa and Mune fight, I'd be okay with that. But I guess if I really wanted that, I'd have to learn how to run any percent.
And a Lavos Shell skip is probably even more difficult than a Lavos Shell execution, at least in its own way.
One little brief stop at home for Marl.
The Chancellor is happy to see us, which is nice.
And also strangely suspicious. I mean,
I'm sure
wasn't he trying to arrest us?
I'm sure he's turned over a new leaf. I don't think we should worry about it, though.
Ah, you're right. All's well that ends well. Hi, Dad. Bye, Dad. So what happened here is after we beat Red Knight, Fiona, who lived in the desert area, wanted to put effort into regrowing the forest, and Robo very selflessly offered to stay behind and help for the 400 years it would take to come back and get him. And remember how Luca said, "I hope I never have to fix Robo again"? Yeah, it's worse this time. This is really one of the more endearing scenes in Chrono Trigger, where most of the party talks about their view on the role Lavos plays in their world.
As well as whether there's something larger guiding their actions, which is an interesting indicator for some of the things they did for Cross. But there's nothing like spending all day and half the night fixing your robot friend, going back in time to save your mom.
Yeah, I get the impression Luca's not going to be forgetting tonight anytime soon. Unless by way of paradox, I suppose. So here we get to see Luca's mom trapped in the machine that takes away the use of her legs. And future Luca is able to stop that from happening by entering the password, which is her mother's name. Her mother's name being Lara, so we can push Lara. We don't actually have to save her, but it skips a lot of the text that we would get if the cutscene were to finish playing out. And then Robo here gives us the Green Dream, which allows us a single auto revive on the character it's equipped to per battle.
And that will be extremely important for us in the final Lavos battle tier we'll be seeing in a little while. But we've got to get through something else first. You know, all in all, the speedrun's pretty nice, though. Chrono is okay. Nothing happens to Chrono, and we save Luca's mom.
That's a lot of happy endings.
Yeah, you know.
Regrew an entire forest.
I think we've done all the things we should do. Let's go fight Lavos.
Oh no, you know what? We forgot something. We still haven't fed Chrono's cat.
Oh no. How will we defeat Ozzy if we can't have a cat come help us?
Missed opportunity.
Hmm.
We'll just have to save the world instead. Lavos Shell, for those of you who don't know, is a gauntlet of sorts in which we're going to refight all of the story bosses we fought so far, plus one. It'll be Giga Gaia at the end. And we have to maintain RNG throughout all of these replays of boss fights in order to make it through the fight against actual Shell at the end. Some of these fights are a little more relaxed in terms of RNG, like the second one coming up, Guardian. As long as you get the first input in, the second one can be a bit slower, but there's a few points, especially Magus, that make it very difficult to keep on the correct RNG and battle values. This is actually a fun little opportunity to see the fights that we skipped earlier on. Looking like perfect inputs by Keet so far.
Rig's having to pawn off a couple additional prize possessions there to be able to purchase the sight cap. But seems like it's good.
It's not very obvious, but all of these menus you can see in between the mini boss fights just go to show you how specifically planned all of the chests we opened up were. Picking up all of the mid-ethers we needed, plus an extra one or two.
Also, all of the party member swaps really crucially important to make every phase of this battle go well. Here we are at the Magus phase of Lavos. And over on Rig's side, going to the Day of Lavos.
Gotta admit, I'm a little on edge.
It's always really nerve-wracking to watch this fight, and both the runners being here at the same time really shows how close this race is, and also, you know, a mistake on either side could really change how close this goes. And it's very easy to make a mistake here, though. So far, both runners have been doing a really excellent job staying cool and on track, so I really admire that. Doing awesome.
All of their practices definitely paid off. It's worth pointing out that if any of you at home are interested in learning how to do this too, there are a lot of resources available to you, not only in the Chrono Trigger Discord, but also in El Gran Jerry's YouTube videos. He has a walkthrough in 4 parts.
Oh, and there we have it. You having to take a reset.
Oh, it breaks my heart. And there's also a wiki with a text guide of the complete route from start to finish that's available as well. This really does go to show just how specific the Lavos Shell gauntlet has to be, especially in the later stages.
Yep. So there we go. Really close race now, and I think that was just one small mistake. I think maybe a missed party swap there. In this fight, you really see a lot of the Falcon hit tech, which is extremely useful and very powerful in this fight specifically. Throughout, and then especially towards the end.
really can't get over just how intense it is to watch this gauntlet. A lot of the run, there's the skips that we can do, whether it's actually skipping over bosses completely or just movement to avoid certain encounters, but this is just raw awesome.
Really going up against Lavos this early at level 20, you need a very precise execution to get.
Yeah, that might be less than half of the level I was the first few times I beat the game. I hadn't really mentioned it, but there's several different points in each of these individual fights where we can check and see if we're on the correct RNG or not by how much damage we're dealing after certain commands. And if it wasn't for those, you could be 3 or 4 of the bosses later before you even realize that something went wrong. And when you're learning, it's everything.
Yeah, and here we have again another lead change as Riggs runs into an off RNG. It's really rough, but it's not too surprising because this battle is so difficult. Even some of the top runners of this game in this category have trouble with this fight because it's so long and so intense. But very exciting to watch as a race.
Definitely interested to see who finishes it off first, and then whether or not our runners are going to go down to battle speed 4 for our last glitch, maybe 2, maybe even stay on 1. I believe they will both likely go to battle speed 4 just to make Lavos core a little more consistent.
Oh, wow. And Keat has to take another reset there. So Riggs in the lead again. Lavos really being difficult.
This is the real test here.
So at this point, hopefully they both make it through and we have an extremely close finish.
I don't know if I'm ready for this.
Both runners.
This is
Just
too
seconds
much.
apart.
Be still, my beating heart.
Worth mentioning that this is why we have the 320 estimate, planning for how badly this particular fight can troll us. So we still are on pace to be able to meet that, depending on how these last few fights go.
It'll be close, but it can definitely happen. We'll be right around that time.
Oh, no, Riggs.
no.
Okay, we've got Keet back into Magus phase. And Riggs and Isabel phase now, so still a very close match. And both runners staying on pace.
Watching
feeling pretty
every input in this Magus section. Oh no.
Oh no. Spoke too soon. See Keet saying one of his controller buttons not working. Keet, I think, mentioned yesterday he was going to clean his controller out before this. I wonder if he found the time to do that. We've got Riggs into Magus phase here.
I'm almost afraid to say anything. Lavos Shell Magus really is a gatekeeper. It doesn't just get easy after the fact, but this is the Lavos Shell hurdle. And Riggs off again. Oh man.
Lavos channeling Magus is just very, very intimidating force here.
Lavos does win some of the Sunday races.
I think we are definitely wearing Lavos down. I love the synced Falcon hits on both runner screens.
Alright, here we get set up for Magus phase again. I'm not sure my heart can take any more lead changes.
and slowing down a little bit, taking those pauses, make sure to get the inputs exactly right. Okay, into Black Tyranno phase, looking good. Looking good.
I forgot to mention this in the last Black Tyranno, but it's really fun to just see Marl use Provoke here. The way that the rest of the fight progresses, because it lands on Azala, and Azala proceeds to do nothing for several rounds. And then Black Tyranno just pretends Azala isn't there anymore. A little bit weird. We're okay with it.
We are definitely okay with it. Looks like Keet getting all of his Falcon hits in for the Black Tyranno phase here, so that's really nice to see.
With some time to spare. If we can keep this up through Giga Gaia phase as well, we'll be on to core in just a couple minutes.
Very nice.
Excellent.
On to Giga Gaia. We all remember him.
I can appreciate the simplicity of this fight by comparison, but your inputs still definitely matter.
Yeah, Falcon Hit actually very useful in the normal battle against Giga Gaia as well. All right.
Here we go.
We are on to Lavos phase.
This one's a little bit scary right up until the last needle. Something goes wrong, it could end up killing Chrono instead.
The Magus phase gets rigs one more time. Very unfortunate.
It really is the most variable Lavos Shell phase there is. It's just so pivotal in the sense that depending on if you were too quick or too slow on your ATV in the early phases, that Magus is the one that you would fix it on. On top of that, it's already really tight on inputs.
One HP for Chrono, looking good. It really is a great job by Keet getting Shell down. It is a tough, tough gauntlet. It really is. Great job, Keet. Really.
So, coming up, we have one more fun glitch for you to see. And it's going to use those 2 elixirs we picked up earlier.
So fun,
Fittingly.
we'll do it twice.
That's even better the second time. So the orientation of the characters in the party matters just as much as the inputs they'll be using. It's a little bit easier to perform on lower battle speeds so that Lavos doesn't have a chance to kill Frog before Frog can use the elixir. So what happens is both Chrono and Ayla will be downed. And Frog will be downed having the Green Dream equipped with a high ATB. So this means when Frog gets revived, he can open up the item menu. He'll use an elixir with A, immediately hit up A, and it actually backs you out into his tech menu, which allows you to select enemies instead of PCs. And then it just uses the elixir on Lavos instead of this case, which causes him to overflow and simply die.
Really, really cool piece of tech there. Tricking the game into letting you use an elixir on an enemy. Something definitely never intended. But it's not the simplest thing in the world to pull off.
Well, it's just funny to think that the Green Dream, which is already an amazing accessory, just happens to be far better than the devs probably thought possible.
No, absolutely. And here we are, final battle.
Not only is it, life 3 for you, it's also undeath for your enemies. So we use an item to get Frog's ATB in a good spot, as well as to get his memory cursor back onto item, so that when we do the same thing in a moment, we don't have to worry about being in the wrong menu. Again, speed is of the essence here. You can see just how high Keet's ATB is on Frog when the revive happens. That's time.
GG's to Keet. Very nice.
That was incredible. Little bit of a hiccup there for Shell, but honestly, it is so difficult.
It really is. Rig's going to give this one last try here. So as I mentioned before, we're going to see the Magus Force ending here. So a little bit different than what you're used to. Okay, looks like Rig's calling it. Really fantastic race to both these runners. We really appreciate it. It's been so fun to watch.
Definitely had some very intense moments. You're right, though. A big shout out and thank you to both Keet and Riggs for putting this on. Please drop them a follow.
Yep, both very active runners, making huge improvements all the time. I mentioned Keet just got a PB last night. I believe that put him in the top 10, which is super cool. Riggs PB down to 301, which is insane. So, yeah, definitely give both of them a follow. Really, really great runners to watch for this game.
Also want to give a quick thank you to everyone for helping put on SNES Super Stars. Just an awesome event.
It's been a ton of fun. Thanks, Feasel. Thanks, everyone else involved. And we'll definitely let this end play out.